are live. Good evening, everybody. We are so glad to have you tonight on a special edition of the Archer Football Podcast. We've got our friend Cleveland Kate here. I'm Sonia. And tonight we are joined by one of our favorites, our friend of the program, best friend of the program. He's our bestie, y'all. He's our bestie. We've got Emory Hunt, draft guru extraordinaire at Football Game Plan on Twitter. Are you on Blue Sky yet?
I think so. I signed up. I hadn't done nothing over there since I signed up. So
I know a lot of people are at least signing up to get their name, and then they'll figure out if they want to use it later.
Exactly.
That's exactly what I did.
Exactly.
So I'm going to see you in like 2 weeks for our annual selfie together at the Combine.
Right. Next week.
Oh, Lord, that is next week already. We just got our media credentials this morning. Dana kept checking. She's like, it's pending. And I'm like, dude, it's next week. So we are good to go. She's going to come with me. She hasn't been to the Combine yet. She's going to experience. It's busy. Like, if you haven't been, you don't understand how busy it's busy. Way busier than the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
There's a lot going on.
Well, because it's all day. They do the interview sessions all day, and so you're running around, and then the workouts in the evening. With the draft, the daytime hours for me are like kind of chill, and then once the draft starts is when they're busy. Emory, I know you're doing the Combine, right? So
before we going too far, everybody, if you're watching on Twitter, or if you're watching on the Facebook, head over to our YouTube. Join our chat. Make sure so that you can interact with Emory, ask him questions, ask us questions. We're so always excited to have you. We've got Kristen. We've got Old School Seahawk in our chat tonight. So it's going to be a great day. All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
Anyway. So aside from all, the player interviews and stuff, what else do you do when you're at the Combine? Do you go to the workouts? And do the workouts matter?
To me, no. I go just to watch and have something to do. Because at the end of the day, for those that haven't been, the Combine, I said this maybe last year, I tweeted this out, but it's kind of like we're all back in school again. We're in class all throughout the day. So let's say from 8 to about 3, we all go home, and then we all go out at night. And so it's like, everybody at 3, once he's done with the interviews, they go back to the hotel, do work, whatever they have. And then by like 7 o'clock, everybody's roaming around Indianapolis. And then they just rinse, repeat for, 5 or 6 days. But now that they start to let the media go into the workouts, because remember at one point in time, we couldn't. It was going on at the same time we were doing interviews. It's cool to go over there and sit down and just, kind of watch what's going on, just to kind of have something else to do. Otherwise, you really just buying time until dinner reservations, and then do your thing. So I know I'm a foodie, so I've already like locked in my reservations like weeks in advance. So that way I know at least I have these spots I'm gonna go to if I decide to change it. At least I know they're not booked up.
Yeah, so Katie said what restaurants we want to go to, and I gave her a list, and this was like in November, and I'm like, you need to like start booking now, because if you wait till the week of, you're not getting a seat anywhere.
Yeah, it's like, you can go at 4:30 or 11:30 p.m. Like
right.
So like you knock those out. But to long-winded way of answering your question, they don't move the needle. You just like to see guys compete, and that's why that's what I get out of the Combine, in terms of the workouts.
Yeah, I like to see like which quarterbacks volunteer to throw for the wide receiver workouts and the tight end workouts, because they don't all.
Really?
And then I like things like watching the bench press and some of those exhibit things that they do, because I like to watch the guys standing around the ring to see if they're cheering on their competition, the other players at their position, to kind of get a feel for what kind of a teammate I think they're going to be in the locker room. You'll always have a couple that are just in their head, and then you have those guys that are cheering on whoever's trying to get one more rep on the bench or whatever it is. And so I'm weird. I watch different things than most people.
You do, I'm sure, but I think I like that part of it too, like that camaraderie and that cheering on kind of spirit. I think that's a good thing. But my question for you, Emory, is, you're kind of the players are competing against each other. Sometimes there's a lot of talk about how it's a sterile environment, that they don't have, defenses coming at them and things like that. So it's always going to look good, always going to, show off their best talent. What do you feel about that? Like, how do you combat that kind of talk or whatever about that?
I feel like everyone says something around that until one guy messes up, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's like, how could you mess up? And it's like, well, not the other side of the thing they always say is the fact that this is a stressful situation. Think about these guys they're up early, you know, for a job interview, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what people are noticing and what they're writing down, but in your head you saying, man, is he writing about me? Are they writing about me? Oh, I forgot to put this bottle in recycling instead of I put it in the trash instead of recycling. Should I go do
Ah.
so all of these things are going in their head, and on top of that, you're trying to work out, you're trying to have the best because you in your head are now focused on these workouts as opposed to realizing, like, man, I put 4 to 5 years of film together. I should feel comfortable in this environment because all I'm doing is lifting weights and running. So at the end of the day, like, why am I stressed about how many times I got to throw up 225 pounds or how high I jump? When you watch me, stiff arm so many people or run past so many people, like, this doesn't matter. But because you're around other people and they're competing, and we in the media talk about it, and it's broadcast on NFL Network and fans are watching in the stands, it makes it stressful. So yeah, it doesn't matter until it matters. uh,
Mm-hmm.
so folks, just have to understand that this imagine if someone came to your job or when you were in school prepping for what your career is and just observed, didn't say much, and some people said the decision makers didn't say much, but other people that were also there observing you, asking you questions, some dumb questions, some good questions, and you're trying to figure out, well, okay, how do I answer this? Do I answer what they want me to answer? Like, so all of that is going
Mm-hmm.
on. It's
Mm-hmm.
really just a big, test to how can you just get through something? And that's why if you just go in there trusting what you put on film, then I think the stress will alleviate itself from you in that regard.
Yeah, there's always somebody in my experience walking around asking those weird questions. If you could be a tree, what would you be? Or what's your favorite candy bar? Like those kind of easy softball questions. But I think for a lot of these men, these young men, they're very confident on the field with what they can do on the field. It's you can tell for some of them, it's their first time at a podium with a microphone getting asked questions. You get, your high profile guys. I can remember not that long ago, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young with everybody there, and then guys farther down the line where there's only like 5 or 6 media members asking them questions, but they're like, nobody's ever asked me questions before. And I know they prep for it, but those are some of my favorite interviews, are the guys that you can just tell this is the first time they've had to do this. You can tell how well they've prepped for it. And they're a lot more fun to talk to. I think they're a lot more candid in what they say when you ask them questions, because they haven't been asked those questions a million times. And I think that's the part of it that from an observation standpoint, the part where they seem the most nervous is when they got to get up on that podium and answer whatever random question is going to come their way.
The thing is, I mean, if it were me and I was going through the process and I knew I was a guy that had the film to back up whatever, I'm gonna lean in. I'm gonna just have fun with it. So, oh, what's your favorite food? Well, I only eat the blood of the blood of Christ. That's the only food
Oh
like,
God.
I only like like you gotta have, like, because none of this matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just watch me rush for
Yeah.
2,000 yards. Don't ask me what I would do if I was, which kind of tree would I be? The learning tree. You know what I'm saying? Like just have
Good
fun.
answer. Good
Like,
answer.
because none any of these questions that you're asking at the combines is like, I totally would but that would probably look negative on me in my evaluation
Right,
because I would totally
right.
just be like, "Oh, you don't take anything serious." Like,
But
no,
see, to me, that would be a positive for me. You don't let anything throw you. You just roll with it. And there are going to be times on a professional team you're going to have to roll with whatever's going on, and you're going to get asked hard questions. If you have a teammate who's having legal issues or whatever, people are going to ask you questions, and your ability to just kind of throw it off and turn it into something else. I'm sure teams are looking at all that kind of stuff, but they've
if
watched all the film.
if I wish I could have advised some of these players because if I was, you know, talk advising Lamar Jackson when he was there at the combine and knowing the questions he was going to get asked, they are you willing to switch wide receiver? Like, yeah, totally. I've studied all the great wide receivers. You know, Dan Marino, John Elway. Like, yeah, yeah, I was like just totally, pretty much told him like to f off, right? You know what I'm saying? In that way, yeah, I would like answer the dumb questions in the dumbest way possible,
Yep.
and you won't get any more dumb questions. Like,
I really wish you would have said that. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, sorry, guys.
I'll ask Lisa's question. Lisa's got no internet, so she's making all her comments there in the chat. I know exactly what she's going to ask. She did talk to Taylor at the Senior Bowl, and she feels like this guy has a chance. Lisa's all about the quarterbacks, and we all know whether we like it or not, quarterbacks are going 1 and 2. I don't think they're the top 2 ranked players in the draft. Where if teams were actually drafting based on talent, where would the first quarterback go?
1 and 2. If
Really?
like if because you think about what those two teams need, and that therefore that kind of lines up perfectly. Um, Best player pound for pound. I mean, there's only one player that does two things, and so he would technically be the best player pound for pound. That's Travis Hunter. But the way and Cleveland still could take Travis Hunter. You know what I'm saying? But
Praying.
Cleveland needs a quarterback, and it's hard to pass on who I think is Joe Burrow and Shador or Patrick Mahomes esque in Cam Ward. Like, and I think what has happened is when you look at how uh, social media has a significant effect on society. But let's just keep it in the scope of football. No one is talking about Jackson Dart until the bowl game and he made a throw. And so prior to that, we saw him throw 3 interceptions on 3 straight plays against Florida, and nobody was like, what was that about? But he made a throw in the middle of the week in a bowl game. Nobody's watching because there was no football on but that one. And then you had the NFL. It's like, oh, yeah, Jackson Dart. And then you have the one-upping that happens on social media. That was a great throw. Wow, that was one of the best throws I've seen. I actually like Jackson Dart, in the second round. I think he could be QB3. And now everybody just kind of to where we create this whole monster out of one player based off one throw and ignoring the 4 years of film we've seen of him, right? So social media has also last year told you Shador, he was in all the first round mocks. And now the same collection of people are telling you this year he's not worth first round pick. So all because it's popular on social media. And social media really has influenced a lot of people to make dumb things seem real. And to answer Lisa's question about, I think she's talking about Taylor Elgersma of Wilfrid Laurier. I saw him back in May when I went up to the U Sports East West Bowl. U Sports is the NCAA of Canada, and they play their All-Star game before the season. So, because you're not doing anything up there now in Canada because it's like cold. So they get their All-Star game done before the season starts. And when I went up there, everyone was talking about this other quarterback from Laval, which is the Alabama of U Sports Canadian college football. They like are dominant, and he's a really good quarterback. But watching him and the other couple quarterbacks, they had the 2 guys that people were really talking about, and one of the other ones from the University of Montreal. He didn't participate, but he was one that everyone was talking about around the event, right? And so I'm watching the other quarterbacks that were there throw the football. I'm like, this dude Elgersman, to me, like can spin it. Now he was throwing the best, and to me he came out that as the best one. So fast forward throughout the season, he won the Canadian version, the Heck Crichton Trophy, the Canadian version of Heisman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I saw him at the College Gridiron Showcase. No, yeah, it was a College Gridiron Showcase. And no lie, I was standing. It was at SMU, and I was standing at the as they were doing wide receivers were like just doing routes on air, so they just warming up, and it was Elgersma and the quarterback from a couple other schools, and they were just throwing, and it was just regular, just getting the guys ready to go, and the receivers like as they were coming out of their break, turned around, the ball was legitimately hitting them in the face. Like they was mostly catching it out of, safety.
Self
Like,
defense.
exact
Yeah.
self-defense. Like, and so you could hear the scouts like, geez, like this dude is throwing the ball really hard. So and throwing it well. And so he had a really good day there. Then he had to call up to the Tropical Bowl. And I saw him participate there as well. I think the first play of team period, he just went straight down the field on a go route to a receiver from Delaware Valley and just hit him right in stride. And so he had a great week there. There were a couple of teams that were talking to him like 35 to 40 minutes after practice. Then he gets a call to the Senior Bowl, which was shocking, but that shows you how he had been progressing throughout this whole All-Star game process.
Yeah.
And we saw the week he did down there. So I think he is someone that had played himself. Two things: the CFL doesn't draft quarterbacks in the first round. The
Mhm.
last one they took was about 2 years ago, which was a big thing. Trey Ford, who was their version of Lamar Jackson, he was phenomenal as a dual threat player. Um, and I remember the Giants tried to invite him to rookie minicamp as a receiver. He told them no, didn't even show up. So he stayed in Canada, and he's been balling. So that was I was like, wow, because they just feel like the American quarterbacks are ready to play more so than the Canadian quarterbacks. But Ford broke that mold. Elgersma, I think, can be a first round pick in Canada, based off how he played in college, based off now he showed those CFL teams that I can do this in the States too. So I could have some
Mhm.
opportunities here. And I think that's going to push his draft stock up to where they can just get him now in the first round. So that way he can come straight to Canada and play. Or now, because he had these All-Star games and how he's
Mhm.
progressed and how he's made a name for himself, you might see him get a late day 3 draft and he'll just go to the NFL and play out his string until the CFL comes calling.
Mhm. Mhm.
Interesting.
Lisa felt that she was like he told me his biggest adjustment was going under center because he's never played under center. That's a huge adjustment. That's a
There's a lot,
very
like
huge
he's never
adjustment.
played under center, never
Mhm.
really had to turn his back to the defense, and that's just how the Canadian game is. And but
Mhm.
also the reason why he made such a huge, you know, a seamless adjustment to the NFL or the game here in the States is because a lot of what we see in college football and now in the NFL is all CFL stuff. Like all that zone read, throw to the tight end leak, they run that for actually the zone read actually started in the CFL. It started with Damon Allen, who is Marcus Allen's brother, who was
Oh,
a
okay.
legend at quarterback up there. I think he has the all-time pro football passing records of like yards and touchdowns because he played for 20 years. Phenomenal quarterback. I think he retired in like 2009 or something like that.
Oh,
So it's
wow.
crazy. Um, and so he was the first. He did it out of mistake. Like he was supposed to hand it off, but didn't, and like it was a mishap on the play, and he kept the ball and went, and then they just put that in the playbook, like, and so that's how the
All
zone
right.
read
Hey,
was
let's try
born.
this now.
You know what I'm saying? And so for him never having to do that and having to get the footwork and the timing down from being under center, yeah, that's new, but that's something you can learn, but just by repetition.
Mhm.
Because even now, how often we see a lot of these teams play predominantly in the shotgun anyway.
Sure.
So at the end of the day, it's like, or the pistol. So that's an adjustment he'll have to make. But in terms of throwing, and it's like going from playing in a parking lot to playing in the classroom in terms of like how the field is, and from the Canadian field to the field in the States. So he's going to be able to get the ball wherever he wants to go. It's just about getting the other little things down to a science.
Mhm.
Yep. Dana said to tell you she's sorry she couldn't be here tonight. She's having they're having weather in Kansas City, and her nephews had an event that was postponed from yesterday to today, and she's the best aunt on the planet and had to be there. But she wanted us to ask you about the small school players. And are there some
Yeah.
hidden gems at these small schools, guys that we should be paying attention to at the combine and that we could see go in some of the later rounds in the draft?
I would say just off the top of my head because I hadn't really studied the combine list, but I know there were two guys that I just saw recently that are going to be at the combine. Gray Zabel, you've seen everybody talk about him from North Dakota State, was outstanding at the Senior Bowl. Offensive lineman that is just was dominant there, and that was impressive considering that he had just come off a 16 game season winning the national championship, and he went out there and competed in the All-Star game and didn't sit out and did the entire week. Um, Carson Vincent, now that I'm here at the HBCU Legacy Bowl, the HBCU's fresh on my mind.
Mhm.
Vincent was outstanding at the Senior Bowl as well, from Alabama A&M.
Amen.
Looked the part, played the part, showed that he could stay out at tackle. And he had a great week there and against some of these, top tier pass rushers. And that's what you want to see. And, those are the two guys just off the top of my head from small schools,
Mm,
uh, FCS programs that can really, not only just, I think for Zabel, we're talking about maybe late round one, early round two. Vincent had gone from maybe late day three to now probably late day two, based off
Nice.
that week. So it
wow.
shows you how important it is to not only show up, but make sure you show out at these spots.
Yeah. Didn't North Dakota State beat Montana?
Now you just did that for Dana. You just did this to poke
I
fun
just had
at
to throw
Dana.
that out there for
Like,
Dana.
like,
Pretty sure that was a Montana. Montana lost that one.
that was a big loss. It was actually, I think I tweeted out that was a
That was
really
brutal.
good football game because we saw both quarterbacks who should be at the combine. Touchdown Tommy Malott for Montana State and
Yeah.
Cam Miller for
Mhm.
North Dakota State. Surprising that neither are combine invites. They may even be there as throwing quarterbacks. You never know. Those quarterbacks that don't have numbers, but they're out there throwing to the
Yep.
different positions. To what you asked about, you brought up
Yep.
earlier. That may be
Mhm.
those guys. Those, like you said, those are the things you want to keep an eye on. Like who's the throwing quarterbacks that
Got
aren't
you.
invited to the combine because that's a chance for you to get out there and showcase your stuff too.
Yep. I'm sure if
Oh
he is,
wow.
Dana will notice.
Mhm.
He'll know exactly what we got to go find.
Oh boy, Kate. You all right?
I'm good.
Okay. Oh,
That flu
Emory.
thing is going around, and like I was really, really sick 2 weeks ago, and then I was fine, and then the cough just will not go away. And I was negative for the Rona, so I don't know what it is.
It's the
But I
cough that
live in
we
Cleveland,
missed.
so it's snowing. It's been snowing. If it's 4 degrees, I'm happy. That's a hot day. So I don't know why I live here. I
Understand.
keep asking myself why I live here.
Emory, do you have your draft guide? Is that coming out again this
It's
year?
And
come
how can we
right
get it?
now. I am working. I've done quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends. I am right now in the process of grading centers. I should be done with that by Sunday, so then I'll have to start guard. So we're looking at tracking late March for it to be out again. But yeah, still working on it. It's the best draft guide out there.
Literally.
Literally.
It
Literally,
helps
you
you
guys.
pre-draft during the season when the guys pop on and off rosters, and you're like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Pretty sure I got a report on him. But it's labor intensive, but it's at the end I'm proud of it. I'm happy that I've done it, and it really just shows your work of the course of the season and why I'm going to all these all-star games. And you never know. You may pop up on, like, you might watch somebody and be like, this guy is kind of interesting that I remember from, when I was calling this game at Morgan State, and next thing you know, he's on a roster, and you're like, that's
Yeah,
pretty dope.
that's
I
good.
I, I watched him out and I was correct, and I like seeing those things. And when you see some of the players purchasing the draft guide and they appreciate the write up because even if they never play a down in the NFL, at least it shows them that somebody took the time to evaluate their film and they have another piece for their scrapbook of they can show their grandkids and when they played ball, and you know what I'm saying? Like all that stuff just kind of
Yeah.
is cool
Yeah.
to see.
So
That's
I
cool.
buy it every year, and I do two things with it. First thing I do is after when it comes out, I go look for guys that made an impression on me at the combine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those guys down at the end of the row that have four of us asking them questions. I go look to see what your evaluation is of them to see if I think they actually have a shot of getting drafted. And to your point, I use it for the entire season. There are injuries. There are guys getting signed to practice squads. There are people coming out of nowhere. And I'm like, let me go see what Emory says about them. I used it the whole year. It's called a draft guide. And I think a lot of people think once the draft is over, it's not good for anything. I use mine the whole entire year.
It it
Mhm.
it was, and I'll tell you guys this for the listeners too. But it's so true when you because I also do like on CBS Sports. I do betting for Sports Line, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's NFL, CFL, UFL, college football, um, and people. I have winning records in all of it. In let's say the professional leagues, right? So I have winning records in all of that, and then folks say, how are you able to have winning records and how are you able to know this, but this so much about these teams and leagues? Are like, well, from the foundation of the draft guide. So all of these dudes, all 1,000 of these dudes are not going to play in the NFL. They're going to go play wherever they go play. But because I've done the groundwork on, if you think about this, right? From I started putting out a draft guide in 2020. And so from
Mhm.
2022, let's say 2025, that's 6 years. So you're talking over what, 7,000, eight
Yeah.
thousand prospects, right?
Yep.
Or seven, let's say 7,000 for the sake of easy numbers. Let alone the work I was doing on Football Game Plan YouTube channel with my draft rankings. I just now took that and just put that in digital form. So
Yeah.
you since 2010, since I started keeping track of my prospect rankings, you're talking well over like 15, 20,000
Yeah.
something scouting reports, right?
Yep.
So that level of foundation of knowing who's on rosters and what they are able to do gives you the leg up saying, oh, this team is going to beat this team. No, this team will not blow out this team. Oh, their starting running back is hurt. Don't worry, because the backup is actually pretty doggone good, so you won't lose
Yep.
it. So all of that is built off the work you do in the draft.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's very cool.
It's way cool. Now, Lisa wants to know, do you profile kickers? Yes,
I
you
do
do.
not. I do not profile kickers. I do not profile
You
punters.
suck.
I do not profile long snappers. But I will say this: I look at. It's funny. That's a good question because I look at kickers and punters, um, how I would be as a basketball scout. Like I would. The first thing I'll probably do is like, let me go check out his free throw percentage. Let me go check out his shooting percentage. If he could shoot, make free throws, I'm drafting. I don't care if he goes to Clemson or what I'm saying, Tougaloo College, whatever. Like
Yep.
I'm
Right.
just because the ball's going in the hoop.
Yep.
So if you're a kicker and your kicking percentage is high and you're high in between 40 to 50, let's go. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because
Exactly.
that's the one thing that's equal in football is it doesn't matter if you're a kicker at Florida or if you're a kicker at Florida A&M at Nebraska, right? If you are you kick, you punt, you punt. The ball isn't different at FBS D2. So I would look at that, and so I'll probably whiff on all my evaluations because all of that don't matter for kickers. It's really just mental.
Mhm.
Yes.
We've seen great kickers bomb in the NFL, and we've seen
Yep.
kickers that had a little fanfare come in and be stars. So, but no, that's why it's hard to evaluate kick. Does the kick go in? Cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm rolling with it.
Right.
You know,
I hadn't thought of it that way. Really, kickers are alone. They're not. They're on a team, but their performance is largely not dependent on anybody else. When you look at quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, what kind of defense are they facing? How are they
Mhm.
in those head-to-head matchups? Can affect their stats. Aside from your line letting the kick get blocked, it's you and the goalpost every time, and it doesn't matter. To your point, if you're on a good school, a bad school, a big school, a little school, that football's the same size. That goalpost is the same
right.
size.
Right.
Either you can kick
Literally.
or you can't. I think maybe that's why so many of these soccer players are switching to football. and they're doing good because you're still just kicking the ball. Lisa doesn't
Literally.
like kickers, but I will tell you, there are many a year where the highest scoring player on my Cleveland team was my kicker. I have a soft spot for them. She'll be the first to complain if her kicker misses a kick and they lose a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Lisa, don't even lie.
Like you don't need one till you need one. So.
Exactly.
Exactly. All right, Sonia, I think we're about good for today. Emory, you will let us know when your draft guide is ready to go, and we will let all of our listeners know. And you might as well pre-order us 4 of them because we'll send you money. We need your guides.
Listen, it's well worth it, to be honest. If I see what, and this is just a competitor in me talking. I see what other people are charging for their draft guys, and it pales in comparison. And you don't get enough info, and you don't really get good info. You when you get the football game plan draft guy, you're getting a draft guy from someone that has actually been to all these all-star games, that actually calls college football games, that actually breaks down the NFL game to know what works in the NFL. That so you constantly see around, and if your draft analyst can't see the same thing, then you just donate money.
It's really a great big huge scouting report. I mean, you could be a professional scout, and what I like is you write it in a way that it's easy to understand.
Thank you.
For like me, and I watch a lot of football, but like I've read things to, my daughter or my husband out of it, and they're like, oh, okay. I've seen other draft guides where all they say is, well, he's like this guy with a little bit of that guy thrown in. Well,
what does that mean?
All right, what does that mean? Do you like the good things about those 2 guys or the bad things about those? You break it down into ways that make it like, as soon as I read it, I'm like, got it. I understand. I know what his strengths are. I know what his weaknesses are. This makes sense to me. And so it's just very relatable, I think, is the best way to explain it. It's easy to understand and digest. It's laid out very nicely.
Information you can use, because as a broadcaster, I tell you, bullet points are your friend. Your eyes quickly go to boom, 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 and you quickly grasp it. And one of the things I always say is, like, when it's week 9 and your team is out there, it's 16-13 tight game. Do you care what this guy's like vertical jump is or his 3-cone drill? You just need to know, what can this dude that they just put in the game, what can he do? Is he good or is he not that good? Where can I don't care about, what I'm saying, what sports he played in high school. Or, none of that matters at the end of the day. And so I try to keep my stuff easy, informational, and anything that I do from a content perspective is stuff that I would want. So from going back to my videos that I used to do on YouTube, was all based off what I would want to see on TV. And so the draft guide is what I would have wanted as a draft guide. 'Cause I used to be a consumer of these draft guides. Now I used to, some I still have. It's just like, because they don't make them anymore, as keepsakes. And it's like you go through, you're like, dang, this was a bunch of just unnecessary stuff. Like, and it wasn't easy on the eyes to find. And so, using that research and like, how can I create the better draft guide? And then boom. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's 99.9%.
I can tell you started as a consumer. You're reading them and you're like, the stuff I want to know isn't here. I will just go find that out and I will put it down for people. And I will say one thing that popped into my head when you're like, I don't care about someone's 3-cone drill or their vertical. The only player that I can think of in the last however many years I've been going to the combine who did one of those things and whose stat actually ended up meaning something was Xavier Worthy winning that 40-yard dash last year. He landed that sweet spot with Kansas City, and they coached him well and used him well, and he got to the Super Bowl this year. But usually the 40-yard dash time doesn't mean nothing. Vertical leap doesn't mean anything in the NFL. That's that one example that kind of breaks the rule, right?
Well,
exactly.
You would have found out pretty quickly if Xavier Worthy was fast, right? Like, so it's like, what I will say this, because I don't want to dump on the combine because a lot of kids want to get there and compete, but the most important thing is the interviews and the medicals. You guys know that, and so the other junior Olympic tests they have them do, they need you to do something while you're out there to kind of like justify
Justify
how many
it.
yards. Right? Is that just they done created a whole? They
Yeah.
created content out of it by
Yep.
moving the stuff to the prime time, and then through the weekend
Yeah.
because it used to go on during the week and just like oh yeah, by the way they're running 40s, but now you have the 40-yard dash presented by Zapp's potato chips, like what I'm saying. So it's just crazy,
Yep.
but that's the business of the NFL.
Yep.
Yeah.
We
For
have one
ultimately it's
question.
film. Go ahead,
Mhm.
Sonia.
We have one question in chat. I'm gonna get to it because we have to. Old school Seahawks says that their draft crush is for the Seahawks team is for Warren. He'll likely not be available at 18. Who is the best tight end for the third or fourth round?
That's always tough to project because we know the draft is fickle. You know,
Crazy.
um,
So true.
yeah. So a guy that we thought was going to go top 15 could end up going in the third round. Like, oh wow, that's a
That's
steal, right?
yeah.
So I would just say one of the small school guys um, that really impressed me at that position on the scouting trail was Michael Van Voren um, of Saint Norbert College, a Division III program. And but here's why, because he's 6'4", 250 something. So saying all that to say he only played 1 year of football this year at St. Norbert. Because the previous 3 years or 4 years, he was a indoor track or indoor outdoor track athlete for um, Marquette. Ran the 60 meters, 400-meter hurdles. So you got this big tight end dude running hurdles and placing, and first place, third place, fourth, and he always wanted to play college football. He had his last year of eligibility, went to St. Norbert, uh, and and balled out. And so he was at the College Gridiron Showcase. I'm just like, man, this dude is moving fluidly. Before I even knew the background, I'm just going by what I saw. I was like, man, he's
Yeah.
a fluid move for a dude that's 6'4", 255, something like that. And then, when I'm putting him in the draft guide as I'm watching this film, I see his bio. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. He was a hurdler. So I watch him run. I watched the clips of him. I'm like, that's insane. And that's someone who generated a lot of buzz at the College Gridiron Showcase. And people may say it was a Division III kid. Like, no, no, no. He was a Division I
Mhm.
athlete who just happened to play Division III football for that 1 year. So that's the things that you find when you're on the road, and but that's a tight end, that's a deep sleeper. But
Mhm.
he was it wouldn't surprise me to see him get drafted because of that unique background of his athletic career.
Well, and I like stories like that because critics are going to say he only has 1 year of experience, and I'm going to say he only has 1 year of body getting hit by other people. He got less
Right.
miles on the tires, and apparently he knows the game. He learned how to play. He had the fundamentals down, and they taught him everything he needed to know to play.
Well,
So I'm gonna
I'll
keep
tell
an
you
eye out
this.
for him.
I'm gonna see if I could Google his stats right quick. Because I think he was all conference too. And
Hang on, I'm pulling them up for you. I think maybe.
Van Voren. So
Mitchell Van Voren,
yep, Mitchell.
St. Norbert in Wisconsin. Oh, I bet he played in some snow.
Yeah, so again, when you think about, he was 6'4", 245. So what, this year he was he had 510 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns.
Yep.
So I mean, and that's just 1 year of football, and that's the season, and that's not counting how he looked. And I tweeted about him because and folks took it the wrong way. Folks just got tribal about it, but I tweeted about the reason why you go to these all-star games. If you're a small school kid, or the reason why I love all-star games are because you see the different helmets, and so it's a true 1-to-1. Like,
Yep.
we are both here. I'm better than you, not to prove it. And you go head up. It doesn't matter if you're from. And so it was just like, this is an example of a rep This is Division III versus FBS, right? And it wasn't player versus player. It was just the idea of here's a Division III guy getting his opportunity against an FBS guy, because we hear it all the time. Dudes everywhere else think, man, I should be playing at this big school. Well, if you get
Here's your chance. Yeah.
here's your chance. If you get shut down, then shut up. You know what I'm saying? Like, so,
Yep.
so here's why the All-Star games are important. And it just so happened it was a rep of him versus a linebacker from the University of Nevada, and he just like fluidly ran like a route, but it's one-on-one, so you take it with a grain of salt. But it's the fact that he looked fluid doing it, and so it was impressive.
Nice.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Very, very good. Well, I think that's it, y'all.
I think so too.
We have had a fun night. Emory, as always, thank you so much for joining us. Our turf's bestie. He's been with us for a long time, guys. He always has helped us out with draft coverage and just, hey, who should we watch out for on Saturday? Who's some guy that we need to just kind of randomly find and watch on Saturday? So he's been so good for that. You guys, when the draft guide comes out, we will promote it. We will get it out there for you, so that you guys can get it, because it's a great piece of work. It's a great piece of work. So Emory, thanks again for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
We will see you guys next week. I think we're going to do the college version next week. Should have had you on next week too, so that we can talk some more about the combine and things. So join us next week, and yeah, we'll see you later. Bye, guys.